Witam Państwa na Q&A Lubelskiego Festiwalu Filmowego. Nazywam się Marcin Kwaśniewski i odpowiadam za selekcję filmów krótkometrażowych. Naszym dzisiejszym gościem jest pani Irene Albanel, reżyserka filmu Silent Club, który mogli Państwo zobaczyć w bloku Na progu dorosłości. W filmie przedstawiasz między innymi środowisko narkomanów, które nie jest na tyle znane szerszej społeczności, więc mam takie pierwsze pytanie, jak wyglądał Twój research do tego filmu, ponieważ no, musiałaś na pewno zapoznać się jakby z pewnymi undergroundami takimi.
First of all, I started with what I know about the topic, the people that I know that is an addict, for example, and there's reality, because although we don't talk about it a lot, it's very common, you know, it's a very popular problem. And also I watched a lot of movies of different genres that approach the topic and documentaries. For example, in Banda's Room, that it's a movie by Pedro Costa, that it's a documentary about an heroin addict, and the only thing that he does is like to record her in her room. And I also read a lot of, for example, websites that people with addictions like talk about their issues, like asking for advice and these kind of things.
Już wiem, że mam jeden film do obejrzenia na liście, kolejny do odhaczenia i do sprawdzenia. No i jak jesteśmy już przy temacie narkotyków i no, tematu uzależnień, jest to dosyć trudny temat do wytłumaczenia dziecku, więc tutaj z automatu jakby pojawia się pytanie, jak przebiegała Twoja współpraca z młodą aktorką Nicole Ferrer, 10-letnie dziecko, któremu trzeba wytłumaczyć, no, na czym polega problem.
Yeah, I met Nicole Ferrer, in a casting, and I fell in love with her because her sensibility and approach to the improvs that we made in that casting were very similar to the character that she plays in the movie. And well, she's a very smart girl. It was almost her first role. She did a little things before, and she really enjoyed it. She's very sensible, and it's very comfortable to work with her. And to approach the topic with her, we always talked about empathy and mental health. We didn't want to go to the darkest places of addiction, because I think that it's a cliche, because at the end, the addiction is another problem that can happen to anybody. So she understands it in that, like, from that point of view. And it was very easy to talk with her about that. We also, like, for example, at first we hung out with her and her mother, so it was more comfortable for her to talk about these adult topics.
Jeszcze zapytałbym, jak w ogóle przebiegał casting, bo myślę, że przy takim temacie jest to dosyć ciekawa rzecz i nietypowa, no bo na pewno są zwiększone wymagania co do bohaterów, co do aktorów konkretnych, więc zapytałbym jeszcze, jak wyglądał dokładniej casting do tego filmu.
The casting was quite long because there is a lot of characters in the movie. So at first I started working with a girl that it's called Iris Irish, and she was the casting director, and she had to leave the project. And then I started working with Raúl Guardans as the casting director. So we had like different ways to approach the casting. For Martina, the little girl, we just saw a lot of girls, but I have to confess that Nicole was the first one I saw. And we saw more experienced girls and also more like non-professional actresses, because what we were looking for was that the girl that played Martina had a similar personality. For the mother, we also looked for more like famous actress, and So at the end, I chose Eva Llorac. I didn't expect Eva Llorac to say yes to the project because she's quite famous and important in Spain. And a teacher recommended her, so I watched a movie that she's on that it's called Quien te cantará. And I totally loved her performance. So I decided to write her agency, and she said yes. So that was amazing because it was like a professional actress trusting me that I had not experienced at all. So for me, that's a gift. For the other characters, I had a lot of reference about how I wanted them to be, but usually they were like real people. You know, I didn't have much actors as a reference, but for example, my uncle, a picture I found on the internet about a man, you know, like real people. So, and the other actors, they are all like actors also, you know, not real actors, not people, you know.
No to prawda, że zespół naprawdę widać, że był zgrany i udany, bo no, czuć było te emocje w tych bohaterach.
Thank you very much. It's very important for me that you say this.
Mam jeszcze pytanie odnośnie tytułu, ponieważ Silent Club. Silent Club kojarzy się z imprezami, jakieś takie pierwsze mam skojarzenie, to z imprezami Silent Disco, czyli tak dla osób niewtajemniczonych są to imprezy, gdzie muzyka zamiast z głośników leci ze słuchawek. Co miałaś na myśli, co on oznacza w tytule filmu Silent Club?
Well, I didn't think about this kind of discos, I have to confess. It's more because there are like two interpretations of the title. One is that it's the name of the place that they go, and the other interpretation is that at the end, the characters don't really say what they feel or what they want to say because they are afraid of the consequences of saying that. So there is like a pact to not express certain things to protect themselves or to not to face some kind of things.
Co mi się podoba w filmie, to pokazałaś ludzką stronę nałogu, ponieważ widać było, że tej bohaterce zależało na tym, żeby być w stanie być tą czystą matką, która jest w stanie się zająć dzieckiem. To są dosyć trudne emocje do przedstawienia.
Thank you. Yes, that was the main goal of the movie because I hate how society treats addiction in general. And so for me, it was very, very important that we see that the addiction is a problem that a people has, not something that somebody chooses, because it's really a nightmare when you're addicted to something.
Odchodząc od tematu filmu, teraz bardziej chciałbym się skupić na Twojej działalności, ponieważ z tego, co się dowiedziałem, specjalizujesz się w montażu i Silent Club to twój debiut reżyserski, jednocześnie film dyplomowy. Jakbyś mogła opowiedzieć coś więcej, jak z montażu przeszłaś na reżyserię i jakie masz dalsze plany?
I like to do both things, but I think I like to direct more than to edit. But the difference for me is that when I direct, I like to talk stories that touch me, you know, that I feel connected to them. And on the other hand, I feel that with editing, I can explore the format, cinema, documentaries, or whatever, in a more, from a different point of view. With editing, I like to understand the other director, to try to feel what they want to try to tell with their movie. So it gives me the chance to learn a lot about filmmaking and also to learn a lot about other directors. And when I direct, I like to just follow my intuition about what I want to tell. So, and that's very difficult because usually you cannot choose what you want to tell when you're starting like directing, but that's my goal. And to do maybe little projects, but that are faithful to me. And yes, I like to direct more. I'm like thinking about some ideas now, but yeah, I'm just like starting with these new projects. It's nothing like near now.
No to mamy nadzieję, że jeszcze zobaczymy kolejne Twoje filmy. Wiedza zarówno z montażu, jak i z reżyserii. Myślę, że przy tym połączeniu masz szansę naprawdę zrobić kolejne ciekawe filmy, które będziemy oglądać na festiwalu, zarówno u nas, jak i na wielu innych festiwalach. I trzymam za to kciuki, ponieważ Silent Club jest naprawdę dobrym debiutem. Więc życzę Ci wszystkiego dobrego.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your time and for selecting the movie in your festival. I'm very grateful for that, and I'm very happy to be in Poland.
Ja również bardzo dziękuję i dziękuję za tą dzisiejszą rozmowę. Będziemy chyba już kończyć, więc chciałem podziękować Państwu za to, że oglądaliście. Chciałem podziękować Irene za to, że poświęciła nam czas na rozmowę. Więc, szanowni Państwo, myślę, że warto odwiedzać nasz fanpage i warto śledzić dalsze poczynania festiwalu. Następne dni również szykują nam różne ciekawe atrakcje, więc bądźmy na bieżąco, zobaczymy, co dalej będzie przed nami. Dziękuję za rozmowę i życzę wszystkiego dobrego.
Thank you. I hope I made myself clear because my English sometimes is a bit messy, but thank you.